Hello folks, today I'm going to be taking a look at a box for Warmachine Mark IV from Privateer Press. It's not only a new battle box, it is in fact a new army, the Khymaera Shadowflame Shard.
Alright, so I have here some of the new Khymaera, the Shadowflame Shard faction models. We've got 3 little packages plus bases. Yep. And magnets as well. Magnets come in a little safety jar. 2 different sizes. Does it tell us how many they are? It tells me them in inches. Well, imperial measurements. 3/16 and 1/8 magnets. What are they in proper money? So 3/16 5 mil and 1/8 is 3 mil, he said in a high questioning voice. So having a look in here, these are all part of Privateer Press's new faction and obviously all coming 3D printed. I have to say that's very black in comparison to that one, isn't it? Obviously being made through different prints. You can see the magnet fitting there. So we've got various options for backs. You can swap in and swap out. And then a whole host of head options as well. Cleanup should be practically non-existent. I'm not going to say it's not there though, because there are in some cases very small support lines, like that one there. So small you may not even see that. But you can definitely see these ones. So there we go. 1, 2. So there will be a bit of cleanup to do with these. Presumably they don't need wash. They should have been washed when they were demolded. It's interesting. I don't really look at a huge amount of 3D print stuff, so these are very high detail. What's the best way to put this? There is stepping on them in places. You can see the print lines, but the resolution, that must be it. The resolution is such that it seems minimal. So, in some cases, I think the best way may actually be to prime these and maybe give them a zenith, because I'm getting a lot of sort of refraction off them. Yeah. Rather than go through all of these now, what I will do is, I mean, there I can see a line of what looks like little circles, like fingerprints down the front of that. I don't even know if the camera's picking it up. So I will clean and magnetize them, and I will prime them, and then we can come back and have a look at them and see exactly how these new 3D prints stand up. So I should be back in just a second. All right, we're back. We're going to start off by taking a look at the Spawn of Shadows Rassic. So this is a one-piece miniature. He is the Warlock, for the group. And it's a nice sculpt. There is some lovely detail that hopefully you can pick up. I threw a bit of a blue zenith on it just because even when I put the black primer down, it was still a bit satiny. So wasn't sure how much reflection was going to go on. But as you can see, good level of detail. The unusual metallic scarf looking affair, whipping out the back. That huge sword, Thanatos, which is a big brutal power 17 melee weapon with critical decapitation. He is 35 mil to eye level and roughly 42 to the top of his horn on his helmet. I did have one problem with him. Sword had snapped off in transit. And because this is a 3D printed resin, it's incredibly shiny on the inside. So getting it to line up and glue was a real pain. And realistically, I should have pinned it. I didn't have the time though. But I imagine that's going to be a weak spot that will break again on me at some stage. So something to look out for. I'm not sure. I presume they would replace it if it arrived broken like that. You may be able to see, maybe not, some of the print lines on this part of the sword blade as well. So that would need to be cleaned off. It's not massively noticeable, and it's the biggest part on this. It just happens to be a flat edge, so I imagine you can sand or file that smooth. But yeah, so that's Rasik. So next up then is the Vipex. So this is a shard heavy warbeast. It has multiple options. So I think there are 3 in-game offensive setups that you can give it, and it can also go to sort of a hybrid offensive / support role, depending on how you feel like kitting it out. Interesting thing. So there are, if I bring these in, 3 tail, 3 head options, and 2 different sets of arms. These delightful spindly ones, and then this much bigger cleaver one. We'll come back to the arms in a moment. The heads, tails are all very easy to interchange. If you are going to be using these very modularly, you'll want to paint the whole body first, because otherwise some of the footprints are not the same. So you'll end up with maybe primer showing or base coat showing in a weird place. So paint the whole body first. If I remove the tail, we have this bigger one. Now I haven't magnetized this one fully, and I'll explain why. So pop that tail in, pop that head on. It is a great looking model. Boosh, there we go. A lot of terrific detail from this sort of biomechanical armor. It is roughly $60mm tall to the top of its crest, and roughly 48, 50 to eye level. Now, I have a way I magnetize things. And the way I do that is I start with the body. I just pop that out. I'll pop a magnet in. And then I will subsequently take the arms and start to magnetize those. So essentially all internal magnets I normally have pointing in one direction, and then all limbs point in the same, in the opposite direction, but inwards. So, bish bash bosh, there's a cleaver on. And because I know how they're all going to be set up, I just went ahead and started putting the magnets in. As you can see, they're recessed. They don't come flush. They sit a bit deeper, which actually makes sense. You don't need a huge amount of grab. Whereas if you have two magnets that are actually pressing against each other, sometimes when you remove a magnetized option, you'll actually pull the magnet out of the body or pull the magnet out of the option. So you just want the draw to be there without them being on top of each other. But what I hadn't depended on, what I hadn't counted on, was the narrowness of this body. Because this is set up to be the same as this, essentially. So they would clamp together, and that would be great. But when I checked this magnet, it was actually being repelled by the first magnet I glued in. So this one is set up the same way all of them are. This one is actually pushing away. And if I take my first attempt, what happened was this is your standard all north poles pointing into the body, all south poles pointing out. So I did all the arms and then realized I couldn't have these two magnets in here. I couldn't physically put them close to each other, pointing in the same direction outwards. So I had to flip this magnet over, which meant this arm actually is repelling away from the body. Oh no. So, word to the wise, dry fit your magnets in the body first, because that may change how you actually go ahead and magnetize things. Because this is all fine, but if I want the cleaver to go in, what I'll have to do is remove that magnet, which is not going to be easy, without doing severe damage to it. And it's something I hadn't really considered, because generally when I'm magnetizing something, the magnets are so far apart, it's not an issue. But the depth here, so there's quite a big recess, and then the magnet is recessed into it. So really the magnets are probably about the neck width apart, and they're so strong that the first magnet will then repel. So you need to orientate the magnets in the body first and then do the limbs. Don't work on the principle that all the magnets will always fit in the same direction all the time, if that makes sense. Annoying, not the worst in the world, but I have my way of doing things, and so I got into a rhythm of replacing magnetic parts. Anyway, our final creature for the Shadowflame Shard is the Hydrax. So this is another heavy war beast. Big brutal thing. It has a couple of massive options. One is the heads that are available. Then the other is the customization, so you can give it sort of swift hunter, flight, or overtake. So we didn't want flight, then these would come away and maybe replace it with just a standard sort of spine. It has regenerate, so a bit of a difficult one to take down on the tabletop. If you can see in there, in fact, if I remove the head, that'll be easier. So this is where I was talking about the print lines originally. They are still there, very faint. Depending on how you prime, they may actually all cover up with the primer. Certainly after you have a couple of coats of paint down, it will clear most of it out of the way. Also, these were so deep, I popped 2 magnets in there. I shouldn't have, but I did. So, Interestingly, this comes with 3 spine options. So depending whether you're going for your swift hunter, your flight, or your overtake, you can identify it with that. And then it comes with 5 of these small side heads. And then 3 large central heads, which you can see there. And each of these is a different marker to identify whether they've got something like buckler or poison attack or breath weapon or the many-toothed maw. Privateer Press have actually popped these 5 smaller heads into a separate pack, so you can double up on head options. So if you want to have the same small head on both sides, you can. The big head in the center has a different fitting on it, so it will only go into the central section. And then it's really up to you how else you build it, depending on the war or the beast you want to field or your list in general. But again, really nice detail overall. Even, you can't see it because I've glued it to the base, but even the inside of the coils, because of the way it was 3D printed, have that detail, even though it's going to be hidden once you start playing. So yeah, an interesting set of beasts and a warlock to boot. That is the Shadowflame Shard.
All right, folks, there we have it. The Battle Box starter set, a warlock, 2 battle beasts, all 3D printed, all of the options, all of the time. First time looking at 3D prints really as the end product. I've seen a lot of prototype 3D prints, and occasionally there's some companies will do STLs and 3D prints, but you can get the lines printed from various companies. This being the actual end product from Privateer Press, it's a different kettle of fish for me. I like the options. I like the fact that they come with the magnets and you can swap and choose and pick what you want to field, or even just for the aesthetic look. I did have one issue with the Warlock. His sword had actually broke off in transit. And that's my biggest problem with specifically 3D printed resin, because even though it's quite matte on the outside, when you shear it, it's like glass, it's like obsidian. You end up with a very, very slick surface. And then to get those 2 pieces to match, you're going to have to either pin it in place, which I should have done, or scuff up the area with a bit of sandpaper or something like that. So there's actually texture to adhere to, because gluing those 2 pieces back together took me about 3 attempts. And I was very wary of breaking it further because of the shape it had broke at. It had fractured in like a concave convex sort of shape. So if I broke a piece off, then it wouldn't sit where it was supposed to sit. So the fragility still worries me a bit. I'm sure if you ended up with a piece like that coming in your own box and it had been broken, Privateer Press would replace it. But it's something to be wary of. But overall, nice set of miniatures, really nice finish on them. You can still see the 3D print lines running into areas, but depending on how heavy-handed you are with your primer, that may be less of an issue for you. I probably want to buff those out myself with maybe file and then some wire wool, but to each their own. Let me know what you think below of the Privateer Press 3D printing revolution, and what you thought of the Shadowflame Shard in themselves. Will you be picking them up for Warmachine Mark IV? Till next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.